Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm here with Dr. Roger Petry. He's a professor at Luther College, and I'll ask him a series of questions so you can learn a little bit more about his discipline and area of research and what he teaches at Luther. So thanks again, Dr. Petry, for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a philosophy professor here at Luther College. I actually was a student here way back when, and I did my first degree in philosophy and mathematics. I guess philosophy is something you may not have had at high school, but it's something that undergirds everything we study. So, I always had an interest in ethical debates. I had an interest in political philosophy, how things work and maybe ought to work. I also had questions about the nature of reality. Questions about, is there a God? And some of those big questions. And philosophy was that discipline that lets you ask those really big, important questions that don't necessarily have easy answers or even clear answers, but are important in terms of shaping how you live your life. And I think nowadays there's a lot of challenging questions we have, and philosophy is one of those few disciplines that brings all of these other disciplines together. And so I think that's what appealed to me as a philosopher. The other thing I do here at Luther is I co-coordinate our sustainability certificate, and I am the coordinator of our philosophy, politics, and economics program here at Luther College.
That's awesome. So can you tell us more about the certificate in sustainability? Maybe students didn't know that that existed or kind of pique their interest in that. What kind of courses would they take, and what could they use it for in terms of a career in the long term if they are interested in that?
Sure. So the certificate in sustainability focuses on issues in sustainable development, and really those are the critical issues of our time. So how do we live on this planet as if we intended to stay? That's the question. And so we take a long-term perspective, but we also look at how do we meet present day needs, particularly of the poorest people on the planet, most marginalized, as well as looking at our ecosystems and sustaining those so those are resilient. And so we're really talking about a new kind of development that we haven't really done a lot of work in before, because we have such short-term thinking typically, whether it's government or business. So that's what the certificate does, and it helps you to focus on key issues in human sustainability and social sustainability and ecological sustainability, and get at some real practical answers to some of the core questions, say around climate and climate change, or issues around how do you create sustainable livelihoods for people in an economy that's really changing right now. And so and you get to pursue that through a lot of different types of courses.
Yeah, that's great. So very relevant to students both in arts and science. Could really contribute to any career in government, in
Sure, and especially
education, and
if you're interested in any type of international work, or if you're interested in being in the cutting edge of business or the cutting edge of government, then that's where you need it, or in any profession as well. So any of the professions on campus, you can also take the certificate.
that's great. And just so students know that you can add certificates as part of your program, if you have more questions about it, you can talk to your academic advisor. But yeah, it's a great option. Thanks for sharing more about that. So what courses do you teach at Luther College?
Yeah, so I teach a number of courses in philosophy. So one of the courses of my training is in philosophy of religion. And again, a lot of people want to talk about religion or spirituality and those types of questions. Many, do not come from religious backgrounds, but have always found it curious, or trying to understand, what are these debates about? And I think those kind of core questions about certain parts of who we are and whether or not there is a God, how do we understand claims of religious experience? So that's one thing I teach. I also teach ethics. So I teach contemporary moral issues. I'll be teaching the ethics of science and technology. We introduce a lot of new technologies quite rapidly, often without thinking about what their ethical implications are. And some we can't know until we see them being tried out. So, and then I teach a course in philosophy of sustainable development. which is really sort of ethics plus economics. That's the way I think of sustainable development, and that's the course, as well as a team taught course in philosophy, politics, and economics. So there you get three professors in one. You get a philosopher who answers some of the questions about ethics and wisdom. You get a political scientist who answers problems in terms of power and institutions, and then economists, which look at money and wealth. So we look at really cutting edge issues from those three disciplinary lenses. And then lastly, critical thinking, right? It's something, if you're going to be in charge of your own ideas and not being just manipulated by everybody else, you really have to learn the basics of good reasoning, and that's what critical thinking is all about.
That's so great. You're motivating me to study philosophy. Those are awesome courses. And yeah, again, for students, pre-professional students, like coming to mind, there's so many areas and disciplines that could really benefit from taking these courses.
Yeah, I mean, critical thinking, you'll use that in any profession you take. So that's philosophy 150. An introduction to philosophy 100. So you can see the breadth of things you can take in philosophy, even courses like philosophy of knowledge, what we call epistemology, questions about reality. So that's metaphysics, philosophy, ancient philosophy, and even contemporary courses like philosophy of sexuality or philosophy of film. I mean, there's a lot of things we cover in philosophy.
Yeah, so many really great options. So what motivates you in your research and in your field? What do you find the most exciting? And like, what do you think would be a great thing for students to consider getting involved in maybe philosophy or sustainable development or things like that?
Yeah, so I mean, I study the philosophy of sustainable development. And when you're doing that, you're often looking at new types of technology and as I say, the ethics of that. You know, how do we do things differently in a way that looks after nature and looks after other people, particularly future people, so we don't deplete the planet the way we currently are. And so that relies on questions of not only ethical dimensions, but what is reality really like, and how do we understand technology, and what are the purposes of say a market system that we live in, and what do we ultimately value, right? Because philosophy is saying, let's take some time and ask what is the most important things about well-being, quality of life, and then once we understand what are those important things, which a lot of that's embedded in sustainable development, we can then say, well, how do we get there? And so a lot of my research is both at that theoretical level in terms of basic principles, but then also at real practical levels. So here we live in a prairie ecosystem. There's a lot of opportunities here, but you need to understand where you live. And that's a bit about understanding who you are and understanding your own community. So.
Yeah, that's great, because it's good to have the theory and background knowledge, but then also be able to walk away with some practical ways that you can apply that to your life and make that theory and knowledge mean something when you have.
Well, that's the value of theory, right? We're in a liberal arts college, so you learn basic theories from science or breadth of social sciences. You learn things in the humanities, languages, and all of that. But that theory can be applied to anything. And in a rapidly changing society that we're currently living in, that having the flexibility that theory provides. So you're not trained in terms of this is the way we need to do something. You're trained in how to understand a rapidly changing system and the important parts of it so that you can adapt quite quickly to whatever you have to do.
And
So
what better example than a global pandemic, right?
the global pandemic. And so something like philosophy, politics, and economics, that's a degree we offer here at Luther College. Any problem that you face is going to have questions of money, so you need to know economics, questions about power, so you need to know a bit about politics, and then you need to know something about ethics and how you understand yourself in these larger systems, and that's what philosophy can provide. So that's a degree in itself, which shows the value of those general theories, but in a very practical way.
That's great. So do you have any final words, I guess, both about why a student might want to study philosophy, or what it means to work and be a student at Luther College, that you would like to add before we sign off?
Sure. So philosophy, I think, is all about freedom, and it's a bit about freeing yourself from yourself, challenging your own beliefs, things that you may have learned from other people but never had time to question, organizing your own thinking. So sometimes philosophy is seen as a kind of education about life. And in a way, too, philosophy has a kind of flexibility where you're expected to take your own positions, where it's not assumed there's a single right answer. And as a philosopher, we train you to realize too when you should not be taking a position just because there isn't enough information yet, or you need to develop a new method to approach a challenging problem. And so I think philosophy is kind of the discipline for our times. It's kind of what people need, given how polarized our planet is. Philosophers are never polarized like that. So anyway, that's sorry, my phone going off.
No problem. It's all
But
good.
in any case, that's a bit about what philosophy is about. It's gives you the knowledge from a breadth of areas that you can apply to anything, and also to other disciplines. Philosophy creates disciplines. So if we have to pioneer new ways of understanding the world and new types of scholarship, it's generally comes out of philosophy in terms of how we do that. So,
Yeah.
so it's an exciting time to be a philosopher.
That's awesome. There you go. It's an exciting time to be a philosopher. So thank you so much, Dr. Petry, for your time. And if students want to reach you, they can go to the Luther College website. And there's more details about Dr. Petry's research as well as his contact information there. So thanks again.
Thank you.